All right. So do you guys know what a ratio is? It's one word for ratio. That's what a proportion is, but a ratio is also called a fraction. So a ratio is a fraction. So a proportion is just two ratios equal. Two ratios set equal to each other. So a proportion is actually an equation, which that's what we're studying in this chapter, is how to solve equations, right? That's what this whole chapter has been about. So you saw the first skill test today. Did I tell you guys how it's graded? No. I just graded? I did. So I'll explain again the grading. I'll give you a tracking sheet so you can keep track on your own when I hand it back. I don't want to overwhelm you. All these youngsters are now freshmen. So you guys are 3 weeks into it. Almost 3 weeks in. 3 weeks, yeah. This will be the third week. It's going fast. Okay, cross product. Cross products of a proportion are equal. That's the key for solving a proportion, is you cross multiply to solve. I'm going to demonstrate that in just a bit. But one of the properties of proportions is the cross product property. There are actually lots of useful properties of proportions, but the one we're going to focus on, the one we need to set up and solve an equation from a proportion, is this. If A over B equals C over D, where B and D are not equal to 0, because that would break the first commandment of math up there, thou shalt not divide by 0, remember that. Then AD equals BC. That's the cross product property. That's what allows you to be able to cross multiply. It's always true. Sometimes people will circle these and then circle these. So what's true is that 9 times 4 equals 3 times 12. Is that true? Yeah, that's 36. This is 36. So that's the method we use to solve proportions, is we cross multiply. And we can cross multiply because of the cross products property. Yeah. Don't get it confused with cross canceling. When you have an equal sign, you can cross multiply. If there's just a dot in between the fractions, then you cross cancel. The dot would mean multiplication. So, all right. Matching units. This is the key to setting up a correct proportion. We use proportions all the time. Like anytime you do a percent problem, you can use a proportion. You don't have to. You can just use decimals and multiply or divide. When you do map scales, like if you're trying to figure out, if the map scale is 1 inch represents 10 miles on the map, you could then use proportions to figure out what 2.5 inches would represent, type of thing. Or you do it in your head. Where else do we use proportions? Proportional reasoning. Anytime we're looking at similar shapes, similar means they're the same shape but different sizes. So, for example, when you are looking at the computer screen, you're zooming in or zooming out, you're doing proportions. Actually, somebody else took care of that for you. Instead of resizing it, there's a built-in feature. So somebody knew their proportions to set that up, right? Somebody knew that 150% would be 1.5 times bigger than what you were looking at originally and stuff like that. So proportions are they're everywhere. So it's important when you go to set up a proportion that you match units straight across. So with proportions, make sure the units in the numerator match and the units in the denominator match. So write that down, and I'll show you what that means. You're going to make sure the units match straight across. You might want to just write units match straight across. That'd be shorter. I can show you what I mean. But make sure the units in the numerator, what's the numerator? Yeah. Numerator. And the units in the denominator match. The denominator is bottom and down. So, you got to have miles over hours, not miles over hours equals hours over miles. I think I have it set up. So make sure they match straight across when you're setting up the proportion that you're going to solve, and that's going to be your next skill. As a matter of fact, you'll be doing 2 skills on your next skill. It'll be one like you just did, and then one of these proportions. All right. Got it? We're just waiting for almost there. So make sure you have miles to miles, hours to hours, not miles to hours, hours to miles. All right, let's solve one of these here. So it would look like this. When you cross multiply, if I draw my little diagram here, it's 8 times m equals 7 times 12. And most students will do the multiplication of the 7 and 12 in their head. So they'll go straight to this step. 84 equals 8m. And then one more step. Divide. Divide by 8. Divide by 8. And you'll need your calculator in this lesson. You can just leave the answer. What is it? 10.2. So have your calculators. 10.5. I think it's 10.5. So 10.5. So have your calculators handy. Go ahead and try the next one. You'll need a calculator to do it. It doesn't come out perfectly. So just in the textbook, you'll see that the answers are in decimal. So try this one, and then we'll check with each other. All right. So let's try this one. This one's got it. A little different spot here. So we've got 3 times 8 is 24 equals 4x. Here's what I would show on yours, so that show the cross product, and then one more step, the answer, right? Divide by 4, divide by 4, what does x equal?
That's
6. Okay, you try the next one. Go ahead and try it, please. So, y should equal 1.8 on this one. Y equals 1.8. All right. These are a little different. This might be new for you. What we just did is probably done before. But this is a multi-step problem. Here's what it looks like. The first step, when I cross multiply, I want you to write this down. It's 4, and then in parentheses, b minus 8. At least initially, I would like you to write down in parentheses what we're going to distribute. And then the other side is 5, and then in parentheses, b plus 3. Because a lot of students will just multiply the 4 by the b and not the 8, or the 5 by the b and not the 3. So we need to make sure we understand we are distributing when there's more than one term up there.
Oh, wait, what?
You can't do this all on the calculator, guys. You can't just start plucking away on the calculator. You've got to do 4 times in parentheses b minus 8, and then 5 times in parentheses b plus 3. So I've placed, see how there's 2 terms here on the top? You've got to multiply the 4 by both of those terms. So as you get more used to doing these, you can do that in your head. You can skip to my next step, but I don't want you doing that right now.
Do you have to combine like terms?
After you distribute, yeah, you have to, well, there's no like terms on one side to combine, but you have to use inverse operations. So there's a lot more to this than it looks like. You can't just do it all in your calculator, okay? So we distribute what do we do next? This is variables on both sides.
Subtract 15.
You could. What would I do based on what I told you?
You would add 32. Subtract 4b.
That's what I would do. Why?
So you could keep everything on the left side?
No, good guess. Oh, you're right. Because it would not be negative, and I take care of the letter first. That's what I would do. But what you guys said is okay. Just be careful. So 5b minus 4b is
1b.
1b plus 15. Now we're ready to subtract 15, and we're done. So subtract 15 from each side. So b equals
47.
negative 47. That's pretty good math for after lunch. Got it. Yes. So please try the next one on your own here, and then we'll check answers.
Are you supposed to? Oh.
So you should have gotten n equals negative 5. Make sure you've got that. And I think we got one more example. Problem 4. So using a proportion to solve a problem. An MP3 player has a. I know, now we're out of date already. This is when I wrote it a few years ago. So has 2 gigabytes of storage and can hold 500 songs. So we got gigabytes over songs, right? So gigabytes over songs, 2 over 500. I'm writing in the units to help us to make sure we set this proportion up correctly. It makes a big difference. Equals, this is a similar but larger player has 80 gigabytes of storage. Where does the 80 go, on the top or on the bottom of the fraction? Has to go on the top because it has to correspond to gigabytes. And then the variable goes on the bottom. And what am I solving for? Songs, so X songs. So see how straight across here? Straight across. These guys are buddies, these guys are buddies, right? So it's, okay, we have gigabytes on the top of the fraction and songs on the bottom. And when we go over here to set it up, we got to also make sure it's gigabytes on the top, songs on the bottom. So as you read through this, you can usually pick up like the first 2 numbers in here, make one of the ratios. And then the third number is going to be paired with the x, okay? So that's your proportion. How many parts does a proportion have? It's 2 fractions, or 1, 2, 3, like 4 little cells, if you picture it that way. How many of those cells is going to have a variable in each type of problem? Just one, right? The missing link, or whatever it is we're trying to find. So it looks like this without all the units. 2 over 500 equals 80 over x. Now it's just like what we've been doing, right? So cross multiply here. That's 2x equals 8 times 5 is 40. And I've got 1, 2, 3 zeros. So 40,000. 2x equals 40,000. So divide by 2. Yeah, so x equals 20,000 songs. Wow. Wow. So that's the difference between 2 gigabytes and 80 gigabytes of storage.
I did it.
Yeah, so good. The question is, could we do 500 over 2 equals x over 80? Right? Is that how you set it up? Okay, so guys, listen up. Is it okay to have songs on the top, gigabytes on the bottom? Yes, it is, as long as on the other side it's songs over gigabytes. So yes, good point. Please try the now you try part. Yep. All right, so it's 145.5 milligrams.